Hello, and welcome back to my channel. This is Brother Gerald, or Jerry, YouTube philosopher, or the internet philosopher. I'm gonna pick one of those monikers. I gotta kind of double check with YouTube to see if I can change my name and kind of bring their handle into the game. But that's a whole nother issue. But I'd just like to thank everyone for watching the video. I know it was kind of long-winded, but I really definitely had a lot to say. But I want to get some clarification that the purpose of my videos is not necessarily to convince, but to get people to think. Because I really don't think I have the power to persuade. I have the power to present information, present a philosophy, and reasonable people will look at it. Smart people will try to actually apply it, and the really smart people will think about it before applying it, and then once they actually put it to work, they'll see that it's true. But I found a lot of times that many philosophies that we deal with, we don't have to really fully apply them in the real world, but that's really the best place to test a view. If I believe that people should have a right to choose, and here it is, we start making choices, and then we see the choices not working out and the society not getting better. I think it's at a point where you just say, you know what, even though we did pass this law and we did it this way, it doesn't make sense. Let's what the Bible calls repent. And repent just means to change your mind, and ultimately in changing your mind, you change your conduct, and things go back to hopefully getting or moving in a positive direction. But I'm also going to say that scientifically speaking, I'm all for science. I believe in science, but I believe that science has its proper place. But we can do things with science that can be considered misuse. Like I said, scientists do research, they do experiments, and these experiments create results. Now, what these results mean and what they're connected to are an entirely different thing. And if the purpose or the foundation upon which this scientific foundation is built upon is not correct, then you can expect the interpretations of the information to not be correct. Now, I had a discussion with a gentleman, and I don't think too many people really read and scroll through the posts. I think most people, like myself, watch YouTube, and it gets to a point where if whatever is being talked about is kind of relevant and making sense, then we get to a point where we go ahead and move forward. I'm looking at my computer screen because there's an interaction that I had that I wanted to present, and I'll probably post the rebuttal once I hear the rebuttal. But it's been a few minutes, it's been a while since I posted my last response. But basically, one of the gentlemen kind of took issue at me, being to a point of asserting and making assertions regarding what the Bible teaches, and so he basically created a series of interrogations over me. So he started asking me questions, and he asked it in the form of creating a scenario. And so he said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and just start with a simple question. So I'm going to go ahead and read these postings in the series that they took place, and hopefully I'll kind of highlight hopefully some things that you might not have picked up on, but I'm pretty sure in just listening to me read it, you'll get it and you'll see it, and hopefully you'll be able to think clearly and be blessed. That's my thing. I think everybody that I really remember a lot is they always have a nice little slogan at the end, like David Carroll. He basically says, at the end of the day, Brother Kwesi, who's considered the brother of logic and common sense, he said, I can lead you brothers to the water, but I can't make it clays. So And if you heard this thing before, you'll hear it again, because I believe, you should think logically. So, Akwezi, I love you, and I put this up for you, and I honor you with this one, because you definitely have something to say. You have impacted my life in a positive way. I can't agree with everything you say, but brother, keep doing it. Passion is really what's going to hopefully get people energized, but I think you got to calm down to really hone in on your point. So this gentleman, he's on the first comment section, and so he says, and I'm not going to call him by name, let's just call him Richard. So Richard's talking to me, and he says, let's start over here with a simple question. If you ordered black coffee from a coffee shop and you think the barrister gave you the wrong drink, how would you go about determining that was true? And I responded, I said, no, he continues. Richard says, I do have a point to make here, but in order to make that point, you need to answer my questions openly, honestly, and directly. Otherwise, the conversation gets sidetracked and does not progress. So please answer my questions directly. How would you go about determining that the drink you ordered is not coffee? And so I responded, I said, Richard, in response to the hypothetical coffee shop example, if I was under the impression that the waiter got my order wrong, I could ask the waiter, so what is this, sir? And wait for a response. Now, the reason why I would ask and not just sip the coffee is that I'm very considerate in business. I'm a businessman, and so if the waiter grabbed the wrong drink, I wouldn't want to sip it and then tell him, man, this is the wrong drink, and then he's going to take it and dump it, and that's just a wasted drink. If it turns out that it's not my drink and I haven't really touched it or handled it, I can basically say, are you sure this is the right drink? What did I order? So I'm going to kind of check to see that, oh yeah, I got the right drink. And then it's at that point I'm more committed to testing and confirming. So I'm going to continue. And so I thought I could proceed to taste it and arrive at the same conclusion, and possibly not if the waiter by mistake picked up the wrong cup. There would be a point of termination where I would have to rely on something to make the ultimate and definite decision. In this case, my tasting would be the ultimate authority. Sorry for my slow reply. I was responding to another gentleman earlier. Now it's you and me for a while, and so I'm going to be a little playful to hopefully relax Richard, and so I basically present to him this scenario. I said, let's pretend that this is an assignment the professor at the university gave us to handle. In order not to fail, we must come up to a scientific point of agreement. If not, we both fail and cannot graduate. We are past the point of dropping the class, and this professor is the head of the department. Sorry that I'm your partner, but let's work together to figure it out. I just came from church. I left my Bible in the trunk. I picked up my notebook, ink pen, lab coat, rubber gloves, safety goggles, and my lab manual. I'm ready to go to work. Sounds fun. And so I continued. And so basically, Richard responds by saying, okay, right. So we would test the drink. I agree that would be how we go about determining that the drink is not coffee. Testing something is the best way to determine if it's actually true. Here's my next question. When it comes to your position that atheist believes in a God, do you have any way to test that hypothesis? So I responded, Richard, the proposition is not that atheists believe in a God. Atheists know the one true God of the Bible. The Bible does not equivocate. The Bible is absolute in making the claim. The proof is, without God, the atheist could not do anything that he does. Everything the atheist does, he assumes and accepts on blind faith. His reasoning about his epistemology is viciously circular. When dealing with ultimate authorities, you do reach a point of circularity, but the atheist has no access to certainty, and he cannot account for anything. He can't account for universal law or knowledge, which is defined as justified true belief. Not only is that what I just told him, not only is that proof, another true proof that the atheist knows God is when he argues, he speaks of things with certainty. He lives using things that he cannot account for, but must deny certainty in discussion, because in admitting to universal immaterial physical and moral laws would infer an absolute moral lawgiver, God, to whom he's obligated to obey. So Richard comes back and he responds by saying, Brother Gerald, all you provided was an argument, and a poor one at that, if you ask me, and more assertions, not a test. You seem to have picked up your Bible again, which I can't help it. I believe it so much. Even the Bible calls itself to be a sword. So, I kind of felt we were battling for a minute, so I decided to kind of grab a hold of that thing and chop, chop. So we continue. So let's go back. I'll take it to the top. So Richard responds. He says, Gerald, all you provided was an argument, and a poor one at that. If you ask me, more assertions, not a test. You seem to have picked up your Bible again. I'm looking for a way to test that atheists know a God exists, as you put it. Not just an appeal or an assertion from the Bible. So I'll ask you again. How would you go about testing the assertion that atheists know the God of the Bible exists like you would the drink? So now he's trying to funnel me into doing things the way he wants me to do them. And one of the things that the Bible teaches us is that when somebody gives you a question and he gives you an A or B option, sometimes there's a C that's available to you. And you need to be wise enough to grab a hold on it. And Jesus used to do this all the time, and that's why they called him so wise and wonderful. Man, he is. He's still around. So I responded to him. In fact, no, he basically added some more to the discussion. He says, let me help you out here. And this is really critical. I want you guys to pay attention to everything he says before I respond. Okay, so he says, let me help you out here, Gerald. I would go about this by actually asking the atheist, do you know if the God of the Bible exists or not? Pretending to know otherwise would be like asserting that the drink you ordered is not coffee without even testing it first. And he's correct. He is exactly right. This would not be intellectually honest, and I agree with that. And it would be disingenuous and dishonest to claim knowledge that has not been tested or demonstrated as true knowledge. Now, this is the philosophy he's developing. This is what he wants me to abide by and all of this. So he says knowledge is demonstrable as true. It's something that can be falsified or tested just like we would the drink. And he's exactly right. This brings me to my next question that demonstrates this further and addresses your main argument, Gerald, that you put in your video. Given that there are other religions that claim that their God is the one true God, in other words, one God cannot exist if the other does. And he's true. There's what they call the law of non-contradiction. Either one God is right or none of them are right. But two or more cannot be right unless they're describing the exact same thing. But that's basically the same thing. So he's correct. There is a law of non-contradiction, and I'm down for that. So he basically says, this brings me, Gerald, to my next question that demonstrates this further and addresses your main argument in your video. Given that there are other religions that claim that their God is the one true God, in other words, one God cannot exist if the other does, how can we test this claim as we would with the coffee? A simple test, Gerald, would do. Just give me something simple. I just need you to keep it simple, Mr. Bailey. And I don't think you actually have one, though. That's my point. I have never heard of a way to test if the God of the Bible is any more accurate or true than other gods. So it sounds kind of like what he's doing now is becoming the ultimate authority, because he's basically saying, well, shoot, if I haven't heard about it, it doesn't exist. Isn't that kind of the impression you get there? I mean, but that's not even the issue. Don't worry. I'm just kind of just thinking out loud here. So he says, you don't actually know that your God exists because you don't have any way to test this. You may believe your God exists, but you don't actually hold testable knowledge of this. Rather, you just make an appeal to the Bible just like any other religion would to their so-called text or holy book. To a certain degree, I have to agree that I would kind of fall back to my ultimate authority, which is represented by the book. And that book is the key that gives me access to the God of the Bible. You know, the book itself is not the God of the Bible, but it's a physical manifestation that God cares enough to let me know that He cares. He wants me to remember because He knows I'm not going to really remember. So we decided to put it in a book, and that would be very helpful for me as well as subsequent generations. And so some people really believe it to be so wonderful that the Gideon Society, they go throughout the world plugging Bibles into motel rooms. And it's really tragic in the black community that even when I was a youngster, before I became awakened to this truth, this need to obey the God of the Bible and what He teaches and what He tells me to do, that I used to go to these motels and I used to fornicate. And it was kind of ironic that the very thing that could save my life and save my soul from a lot of the destruction and damage that I have endured was, readily available. But, I didn't have time to even crack it open to see because I was too busy doing everything that was contrary to the book. But now that's different, and I'm like on fire. I'm just full of energy, ready to go. So anyway, I'm about to give him my response. Now, I just hope that my little rambling didn't sidetrack us from remembering. He's basically saying that we don't want to be disingenuous. We want to be intellectually honest. So here we go. I said, Richard, one thing the Bible teaches is that to not reflect the image of God in your thinking will result in a loss of true purpose as well as a physical loss. We see this demonstrated in the Garden of Eden story. Adam lost the relationship he enjoyed with God. He was put out of the garden and had to work by the sweat of his brow. Thorns and thistles would diminish the ground's yielding strength, and his woman would have to bear the pain of childbirth. So there's consequences to, making mistakes and screwing up. But God took responsibility and gave Adam and his wife a promise to resolve the loss as well as the damage. And so God is basically setting the example that we are to follow, that if, you're going to tell people that you're responsible for, God is responsible for making man and woman, that there's rules that you have to live by, and if you don't, then the hammer falls. And He promised. He said, the minute you eat of this tree, you're gonna die, And we suffered a spiritual death because we could no longer walk with God in the cool of the day and talk to Him and have Him respond, and we could look upon Him and just enjoy this thing. So I continued. So I said, so in response to your question, you must be willing to hold your philosophy to the same standard that you hold the one that you're confronting or challenging. It would be very hypocritical to require me not to do something that your view permits. Sounds fair? I think that's fair. So, you ask a question that assumes that you are trying to receive or gain information that you lack. So if you don't know, a philosopher told me, and this philosopher is Richard, so I'm kind of being a little sarcastic, but he's not going to pick it up. I don't think he's going to pick it up, and we'll know in his next response, if he responds. It's been a couple hours since I put this up, so I haven't gotten a response. I think I might have shut him down. But so I said, a philosopher told me that you shouldn't assert that the person you're asking, that they lack the ability to answer. You would agree that such action would be, quote, would not be intellectually honest and would be disingenuous, and it would be dishonest to claim knowledge that has not been tested or demonstrated as true. So That's what he did in that statement before I responded. You know. So now we proceed to the next point that you mentioned, and you assert, he's making an assertion that other religions claim that their God is the one true God. And so I got to ask him the question, is that a true statement? I find that to make assertions without testing or demonstrate it as true is not intellectually honest and would be disingenuous. My last point, you proceed on an all-out assertion fest, stating that I don't know, you tell me why I don't know, and that I hold no testable knowledge, but I'm prohibited from appealing to the Bible and delivering an assertion that is not my own, but was given to me. And I basically had to say, wow. I don't know what to tell you, but if you don't already see the hypocrisy of your philosophical view, you know, I don't know what else to say. So I said the most critical point of distinction between your view and mine is that the message I'm delivering to you, I received and accepted, which resulted in my adopting a view that is in harmony with reality. Disharmony would be synonymous with hypocrisy. The fact that your view cannot be universally applied is demonstrated proof and confirmation of the Bible and the assertions presented about man, man's origin, who made him, why we are here, and why we have true hope. I could say more, but I think you see where your philosophy fails to be consistent. This world is ordered and has consistency, just as God possesses and declares in his word. So for the atheist who wishes to kind of try to say God doesn't exist, it's just manifestly obvious that you're mistaken. And to make that mistake is going to result in a loss. You're going to lose dignity, you're going to lose love, you're going to lose a lot of things. And to me, it's really not even worth it. But one of the things is, shortly after that response, I made one more follow-up because I really thought that I needed to kind of hammer it just one more little time. And so basically I says, because he made a comment earlier to me talking about, you know, in my first video, the only video that's ahead of this one, that I glossed over the issue of circularity, that, you know, when I talked about the dog chasing his tail, and I kind of laughed about it. And so I'm basically going to kind of respond to that issue too. And basically I said, I didn't gloss over the issue of circularity, Richard. I giggle because I understand philosophy to the degree of understanding ultimate authority. You reach a point in the knowledge game as a human that you get to a point you can go no further than asking why this is so. The buck has to stop somewhere. Otherwise, you go into an infinite regress from which you cannot escape. The atheist doesn't know or have an answer to the question of origin and purpose. As a result, many of their heroes have committed suicide, which is a demonstration of suffering loss, like the Bible teaches, and other damage to their thinking and the world around them. Then their speculations about purpose also result in men thinking themselves to be like most animals. Now, I acknowledge that similarities humans have to many animals in creation, but the distinctions make all the difference. Is there any other animal that has the capacity to, quote, make love? We all have sex, but does any other animal declare in symbols or rituals the concept of love? And since they don't, I already know the answer to that, they don't. Where is the need for love in the evolutionary framework? To believe in man evolving from ape-like primates will cause man to suffer loss of true purpose and a perverted sense of self for those who are in power over those who are in subjection. Now, to me, there's nothing wrong with being under subjection. You know, I'm a boss, but I'm in subjection to those that have hired me to do construction work, whether it be servicing electrical panel, putting in a transformer, Something simple like, rewiring a house or, running a sewer system. I mean, to do any of those things, I place myself under subjection to those that are over me in order to get what I want out the deal. So it's nothing wrong with being under subjection. So with all of that being said, I just hope that you guys really get a good gist of really what's out there, and I hope this really helps to build up the confidence of the believer and hopefully gets more people to think more clearly and be blessed. Thank you.